Hello, everyone. Welcome back to a Second Chance, our 2022 Thanksgiving Donor Tribute panel. My name is Philip Jones, kidney transplant.
And my name is Tafaro Cook, two-time kidney transplant recipient and founder of Kidney Care Coaches, where we coach people with stage 3 to stage 5 kidney disease. If you or you know someone who has kidney disease challenges and needs some help, hit us up at kidneycarecoaches.com.
Awesome, awesome. Well, today, like I said, we have a great show for you. Like I told them, we're going to try to keep it informative and impactful. We have Lakeisha Bray, who was with us, Roger Reynolds, that'll be joining us at a time. So we'll go ahead and start with Lakeisha. Go ahead and tell your story.
My name is Lakeisha Bray, and I am the mother of Talia Joy Stokes. My daughter transitioned August the 12th of 2014. Talia was born with what was called hydrocephalus of the brain. And on that day, Talia had a seizure. She was placed on life support on that day. And at that time, our family was just hoping and praying that there would be some type of brain activity for Talia at that time. Unfortunately, Talia did not regain any type of brain function. At that moment, I knew that I needed to make the decision whether or not to have my daughter expire at that time, or did I want to give someone else the chance to have a second chance at life. For me, it was a no-brainer, but I also wanted to discuss with my family what my choices was. And I told them that I wanted to make that decision to be able to share the gift of life with someone else. Although I was losing my daughter at that time, there was some other family or someone else praying for a miracle to happen for their family. And at that time, we decided that that was the best choice for us. So my daughter Talia came into this world as a miracle child. And she left the same way, being able to donate the gift of life to someone else. Talia was able to save 3 other people who were actually waiting on the transplant list for that miracle to happen for their family. During that time, I also lost my sister 6 months later, needing to receive the gift of life. Although time was not on her side at that moment, this gave me and my family the impact that we need to share the awareness of what it is to be an organ donor. Most people do not sit back and really get themselves educated on what it means to be an organ donor, or they feel as though they may not qualify, or they really don't know what it takes to actually get the information. So for me, I am also an advocate, being a donor mom, and an advocate for someone who lost a close family member needing an actual transplant. So for me, I am here to advocate for all of you in regards to donating and to get information on the gift of life.
Thank you, Lakeisha. We appreciate those words. Roger, before we get started with you, I got a small, short surprise for you, sir. Uh, we're gonna bring on the person that Roger actually donated to, Bella Langston, who's a close friend of us on the Second Chance. Bella, thank you for joining us.
Hey guys. Hey, Tafaro. Hello, my darling donor. Hello, Lady Lakeisha. God bless you. I'm glad.
Hello.
Hello. I appreciate your testimony, sister. That's powerful. I got a tissue here, girl, because I'm a crybaby when it comes to this. But I just thank you for, so being so selfless with your child. God bless you and your family.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'm so happy to be here, guys.
We appreciate
And
you
we're so
joining
happy to
us.
have you here.
Roger, go ahead and end story, sir. I think you're
Audio
having audio
problem, I
problems.
think.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
All right, well, let's do this. So we don't lose time. We'll let Roger figure that out, and we'll start from Bella's point of view of how that went, how that relationship goes.
Yeah. Oh wow. I forgive me. I wasn't actually prepared to speak. I've been preparing our Thanksgiving dinner all day for tomorrow, but that's fine because I'm always willing to share in such a beautiful story that in just had a very happy ending. And so Roger is my godson. He is a godson that I adopted into my life. He came into my life at a young age, right out of grammar school. He and my son were best friends. Now, let me just say, we're talking about super grown men now. Roger actually just celebrated his 43rd birthday as well, and my son is 43 and he'll actually be 44 New Year's Eve. So they were the best buds. Roger spent so much time at my home because I have two children, and my kids are roughly very close at almost 14 years apart. So I have a daughter that's 30. And so there's a gap. And Brian, you may as well say, grew up without brothers, whereas Roger came from a very large family. And, and he was like, just this wonderful help to his mom in helping to raise his siblings when his parents unfortunately divorced. He also became, like, I think of my son as not only my daughter's big brother, but a surrogate dad. So there's so much time. He is a part of our family. It's almost like I can't just call him even a godson. He was always around. And of course, as they got older and went off to college and went to, separate universities, we were still a family. And when I got diagnosed in 1994 with kidney disease. I was actually a New Chicago police officer at that time and literally off my probationary status. I'm going to speed through a lot of this because it's a beautiful story, but it's pretty lengthy. But when the time came that I was looking to have to be in need of a kidney, I had several false starts. There were actually roughly 3 to 4 people that were going to donate to me, but unfortunately, they all fell through for one reason or another, which we know is very the testing and everything is very strategic with regard to being an organ donor. And it's not that they're looking out for so much the potential recipient, but they want to make sure that that donor is very healthy and they're protecting them as well. And as fate, as I say, as according to God's design would have it, Roger stepped up as the last person, only because the person who I thought where the transplant was going to actually happen, who was also a good match, she backed out at the last minute. And during this time, my son was also about to get married. And we were at the rehearsal dinner when Roger found out that she had backed out. And then that's when he said, God, Mom, I'm going to get tested. And I did not want him to. A part of it was because I was just so tired of the disappointments, through each time. We know that's a lengthy process. And you just kind of get tired of it. I was already mentally prepared to go on dialysis. The whole point was to try to prevent me having to go on dialysis through living donation. However, he was in finishing up, I believe, pretty close to either starting or completing his master's degree, and he wasn't in the state anymore. And I just felt it would be too overwhelming for him and very time effective. But he insisted. And at the first hospital we were at, which was University of Chicago, which is where my other potential donors went to along with me, the same doctor that turned down my other donors turned Roger down. And Roger was only, I believe at that time, 23, 24, and he was very healthy. Vegetarian. I mean, we're talking about a young, healthy man who didn't smoke, and he was rejected because his calcium was only a fraction of a point higher than it should have been. So I will say I kind of went off on this doctor, because even though this man didn't know me from an iota, I go, is this personal? You're turning down all my people, and and here we are again, and I was devastated. So Roger insisted that we go over to Northwestern Hospital. His dad was actually an employee there, and he told Roger, you guys should come over here. I didn't want to. Again, I was just so mentally exhausted and disappointed. And so we did that. My doctor at University of Chicago was great about getting all my records over to them. I wasn't really optimistic, to be honest, at that point. Not anything to do with him. I didn't know if he was a good enough match. But again, it's just a very daunting thing to have to go through. And so they called us several days later. I actually thought we were going to have to go through that whole process again of all the testing for him, all the testing for me. But again, as fate would have it, God said, no, you're not going to have to go through that. They took all of our labs and they called, and they were like something to the nature of, we got good news and bad news. And we were like, what's going on? Well, the good news is that we have no idea how they let you guys walk out of that hospital without doing that transplant, because Roger, you are a perfect match for her. And we know it goes by antigen. And I believe we have roughly 8, I believe. And he was like a 7. And they, we were just so excited, and they said, and you're an excellent candidate as a recipient. And so we were just so thrilled. We were yaying and just excited and hugging. And then we were like, well, what's the bad news? And I think that might have been like a Friday they told us that, or Saturday. But anyway, they said, oh, we can't get you in to do the transplant until Friday, which was only going to be probably no more than 4 or 5 days later. So that was a joke, of course, but we were just so excited. And so we actually went into the hospital March 4th of 2005. And I just remember being anxious and just a little bit scared. And I just remember telling my doctor to tell his doctors, of course, they were going to take his surgeons, that he was going in first, don't let anything happen to him, And they were like, this is going to be fine. This is going to be fine. And so then they came to get me to take me in once they had removed the kidney from him, and I was already very much under anesthesia. But anyway, everything went great. He was fine, I was fine, and all of our families were there, and they were very excited and happy. And he went home literally the next day, which was the 5th of March, which was a Saturday. And I went home the next day. I was doing great. My kidney kicked right in. In fact, the surgeon even told our families, well, they're doing great. They're both good. We had a little problem with her though. And they go, my family said, they were like, what's wrong? Well, time we connected the kidney, it just really started producing urine right away. And she's like peeing all over our ER floor, our operating room floor. Which my aunt, she didn't have much of a sense of humor. She was like, I didn't like that. He scared me, but everybody thought it was funny. And we were both in recovery. And so I went home the next day after he went home, the 6th of March, which was my 43rd birthday that day. And it was just a beautiful, beautiful thing. I have been truly blessed. They said, you got an amazing kidney. And it is so true. And God is so good, because as of March 4th of 2023, it will be my 18th year celebrating our kidney. And Roger's great. He never had any issues after that as a donor, which I wish he had been able to tell
I
that
think you guys
story.
can hear me now. Can you guys hear me now?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
You should have cut me off so you could
Well,
finish.
no, I mean, I was letting you be you. What do you mean?
Yeah, thank you. I'm so glad you can hear now. Hey, sweetie. So yeah, I'll let Tafaro and Phil take it from here. That's my version.
Well, the only thing I want to clear up,
Okay.
Brian, her son, and I met in high school.
Mm-hmm.
Wasn't middle school, it was high school. And so he and I became close friends because, as she said, she was an officer, so she was always at work, and Brian had a car. And so that's where our initial bond. But like she said, I was always at her home, weekends after school, and it was just something in me that just wanted me to see if I could help. And I think an important story that she didn't detail was that in high school, we went to Jones Metropolitan, which was a business center high school. So for senior year, we had to work in the business sector for part of the day. And unbeknownst to me why this would be such an important aspect, but my job as a senior was at the National Kidney Foundation, or even knowing that I would become a donor.
Okay.
So everything just pretty much lined up, and we had no idea why, everything that was being ushered into our lives would have led to me being able to be a donor.
All right. Well, we thank you all for taking the time to tell your story. We're gonna go to a quick commercial real quick, and then we'll come back and ask you some questions. my first question is, can you hear me? Okay.
Yes.
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 Welcome back to a second chance. My first question is for Lakeisha. So, how difficult was the decision for you to come to donate your daughter's organs?
For me, it was really a no-brainer. I knew that with my faith and what I believe, we are just a vessel. We are here temporary. So at the end of the day, it's not like we can take those organs, into the grave with us. I believe in the circle of life. I believe that, God put it there to be able to continue life. So for us to be able to make that decision, collectively as a family to donate Talia's organs, it was the most um, important decision of our lives, but it made us aware of, you know, other situations, with other people and different things of that sort. So, like I said, 6 months after, my daughter being able to share and give the gift of life, you know, I lost my only sister needing the gift of life, which was an intestinal transplant. And, we never even heard of an intestinal transplant, didn't even know it was something that could be done. So, like I said again, it's all about education, and time was just not, on my sister's side. We found out on February 10th of 2015 that she needed an intestinal transplant. And my sister transitioned on her 36th birthday, um, 15 days later. So, for us, to be able to deal with that type of impact, it was very emotional. So for me, it was like, how can I do the most as far as advocating on both sides as a donor mom and also as a family member, who lost someone needing the gift of life is very hard, so that was, our family's decision. And for me, I'm just going to keep advocating as much as possible. I'm part of the New Jersey Sharing Network. So for me to be able to go out into the community and make them aware of the need, and especially for us as minorities, we're the ones who need the transplants the most. And we're the ones that are not out there advocating, for us as a race across the board, you know.
Wow. Well, I commend you for making that decision to move forward with donating your daughter's organs, because myself, Tafaro, Bella, we're all kidney transplant recipients, and we understand the level of need that we've, for donors in general, not just necessarily living donors, but just people to just sign up and say yes. Like you said, we're only here for a certain amount of time. It's not forever, so why extend that life and give it to someone else that needs it? So, again, thank you for making that decision. Roger, what to go ahead and take that step and donate to Bella?
Um, it wasn't like something that I had to sit back and think about. By working for the National Kidney Foundation, I knew the science, I knew the pros, I knew the side effects, I knew the cons. I think it was more of making sure my family was okay, which once they realized that I was going to do it regardless, they jumped on board. So it was just wanting her to continue to live and knowing that I had a god sister who needed her mom. That was kind of the push that that made me want to go and get at least tested.
Right, right. So, Bella, my next question is for you. What was your initial diagnosis for your kidney failure?
Yeah, it was, well, medically is short-termed FSGS, but the actual name is called focal segmental glomerulosclerosis. Yeah, which
Wow.
is, yeah. Yeah, you trust me, you get to become a pro at pronouncing the things, these diagnoses, but and it's even longer to spell, trust me. But yeah, that was it's the scarring, and what that is in essence is the scarring of the glomeruli. And the unfortunate thing, and there's so many variations of various types of kidney disease, some more popular than others. The nephritis department is a real popular area, is a real popular one. The unfortunate thing about FSGS, which I was told at that time, was that they said even with regard to a transplant, that it's a possibility it can come back. Now, I didn't know at that time how to rebuke Satan, but I have since that time became a follower of Christ. And so if somebody were to say that to me, a doctor, right away, I'd be like, get thee behind me, Satan. This is not coming back to attack me again, not after this type of blessing. And this is the proof in it, because again, I am almost 18 years post. The average transplanted organ medically is not supposed to last that long, but it's over when God says it's over, and it lasts as long as he says it's going to last. And of course, in conjunction with taking care of yourself, as Sister Lakeisha has been saying, it's just so critical that we be our own best advocate with our health and do the things that we need to do to care for our bodies. And it has nothing to do with age, because it wasn't that I was that old, and I was about 31, about 32, yet I was in the best shape of my life physically, having just gotten out of the police training academy. So it's all about taking care of yourself, and especially if you have an illness in your family that's pretty much genetic, because that increases the probability that of you possibly acquiring that too, not definitively, but a stronger possibility.
Lakeisha,
Right.
do you are you still in contact with I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, you're good. Go
Okay.
ahead, Mr.
Lakeisha, are you still in contact with are you in contact with any of your daughter's recipients?
As of yet, no. I have sent out letters. I do know that most of the people that did receive Talia's organs are a little bit older. So, it will be a blessing to be able to meet those individuals. But I just believe in God's time. If it's meant to happen, it will happen. So like I said, I would be eager to hear the person that received, my daughter's heart, to be able to hear it beat one more time.
Right.
But, even during all of this, my prayer has always been for God to give me comfort of the heart. Because as a mom, losing your child, you really don't know what you're going to be like afterwards.
Right.
And for me, it was a struggle, but I had to get to a point where I said, you know what, this is not going to be life. This is not going to be me. How's it that, I can become content with it? So as long as, I don't know what it is to grieve. I've never been through that actual process. I mean, if crying in the shower and thinking about, losing my daughter and losing my sister is my way of grieving, then that's how I grieve. But to actually go through the grieving process, I have not, actually done that. And I think that because of the prayers that I put out to God to keep, my heart content, he may be sparing me from actually meeting Talia's actual recipients. So if that is, what he's done for me, then I'm more than grateful. Because at the end of the day, I know that, she came in this world a miracle and she left the same way.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. That's beautiful right there.
Mm-hmm.
Roger, Did you have any after effects from the transplant physically? And did they tell you you had to do anything to get prepared for the transplant? Because my donor had to get prepared a little bit when she gave me my kidney. So,
Prepared for the operation? No. Any side effects afterwards? I was fatigued for maybe about 8 weeks afterwards, because of course your body has to get used
yeah,
to and reacclimated to your new system.
right.
And God, mom hates when I tell this story, but or when I say this, everyone asks me about pain or anything. The only thing that bothered me was the amount of gas I had to pass. Because after they inflated my body, trying to see, I'm like, I need to pass this. So I didn't feel any type of pain from the incisions. It was just the gas. And so once that was finally out of me, it was just making sure that my body had time to readjust to our new norm. Yeah, just fatigue. There were a few nerve endings that they did have to cut that were not visible on the X-ray, but within time those grew back to normal. Yeah, I really haven't experienced any type of side effects. I will say, even though I was in another state, whatever donor program, my costs were covered, even from out of state. I still saw my nephrologist. Maybe, well, it started off with an annual visit, and then you go every 3 years, and then when needed. I have never incurred a cost from being a donor. So yeah, I'm pretty healthy. Like she said, it will be 18 years, and I am as normal as can possibly be.
That's wonderful right there. Me being a two-time kidney transplant recipient, I was playing college football when I was diagnosed with what Bella says, glomerulonephritis. Some people pronounce it differently. So my sister was my first kidney transplant recipient, and then my one of my good friends when I owned my fitness studio, she was my next donor. And what you tend to find out, and this is what I like to tell people when they talk about being being organ donors, are 90% of the time when you're a donor, you are perfectly fine afterwards.
Mhm.
It's very rarely do you see somebody have any difficulties. Just like my two donors, they're beautiful right now. They can, and people are, quite impressed when they meet them. Just like I'm pretty sure they're quite impressed to meet you. Like, oh, you're an organ donor, and and I'm saying this to say that we need to tell our community about that, how the donor lives a full life, instead of all these myths out there that they're not going to be well and all this other stuff that we have to debunk. And Bella can contest to this, that some of the myths out there that are running rampant are just out of this world. So I'm glad to see you're doing well. I'm glad Lakeisha is here, being a strong mom like she is. These are the stories that people need to hear, so we can in our community be more fluid in giving these organs and stuff to people. So thank you, both of you guys. Just want to say that.
Yes. Yeah. And another, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Phil.
No, you're good. Go ahead, Bill. You're fine.
I was just going to add to one thing, Rod, actually you as well, Tafaro and Roger, it's good just within the, regarding myths and misconceptions, that it's also good for people to know that we are in an amazing century for some of the greatest things being done in medicine. We are so far advanced. It is not like when transplantation first began in like the what, maybe like the late 70s or early 70s. I don't even remember the exact date when you had to be cut. I won't say that. I don't use profanity, but
Yeah, but I know what you're talking about. I clearly understand where you're going with that. Yeah.
empty your appetite,
Yeah.
as old school term used to go. From side to side, right? And with things like that, of course, that's more scarier, much more risk of infection, much longer healing time. Roger's, what is it, Raj? 2 or 3, maybe 2-inch scars that were actually
3.
done laparoscopically, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
3, right?
3.
2-inch. Oh my God. And again, he went home the next day.
Right.
Went home the next day, and I have never taken any type of medication as a donor. I'm not on a lifetime prescription of anything. So people always ask me that, what meds do you take after you have donated? Nothing. Nothing at all.
Yeah.
And Belly, to your point, I can honestly say the evolution of the medical situation when it comes to transplants is getting better and better. I had my first transplant in '94. And when I talk to my doctors now about the things they did in '94, those things are like almost barbaric compared to what they do now. So
yes,
even the medications back then were way more severe.
Oh my God.
Yes, were way more severe and things like that. So technology, like Bella said, has improved light years. Just want to say that.
Thank you for bringing that up too, Tafaro, because that's really important. I mean, many people were on at least 100, literally 100 and some pills a day.
Right.
You okay? So
yeah. And
oh my God, and
And the challenge is to keep the transplant. I'm 15 years out now, but the challenge is to keep the first transplant were harrowing. I'm just gonna say that, from all the times I had to go back into the hospital because of rejections and things like that. And it was a perfect match transplant from my sister, but yet and still the technology just wasn't there. I could tell you some horror stories that happened to me just being in the hospital because they didn't have the technology they have nowadays. But that's for another story. But go ahead, Phil.
Yeah, I was just really kind of into what you guys are talking about because I can relate. When Mr. Cook had his first transplant, I was actually just getting sick. I got sick at 4 years old, and we ended up having our transplant the same year when you had the second. I had my first. And, hey man, I was trying not to say that. You said it. It wasn't me. But the in time, like you guys were just saying, the progression of medicine is ridiculous because in '94 when I had my biopsy to check what was wrong with my kidneys, I have a full blown scar going up my back. But when they got kidneys, when I lost my kidneys again, when my transplanted kidney rejected, they did it laparoscopically, and those scars are gone. And so it's improved so much in the medicine world between just that in that short time. People hear 20 years and think, oh, that's a long. No, that's not really that long. It's a bunch of 20-year-olds running around here, and 9 times I grew up in front of my eyes. So 20 years ain't really that long, you know. But it's a one that's happened. There's so many things going out there where are less invasive procedures to check and make sure that people aren't rejecting, or if they are rejecting, and things of that nature. So the progression is awesome to see. So, but I'll get back to my question. So, my question for Lakeisha is, how did your family take the news that you wanted to donate your daughter's organs, and were they supportive of you, or did you get any backlash from anyone?
Everyone was very, very supportive. Most of us are all organ donors. So I just wanted to let them know that this was the decision, that I wanted to do. And it was My aunt, who's an evangelist, she came to my mom and she said, um, God told me to tell Keisha that he took his best to answer a prayer request. So although I was losing my daughter, like I said, somebody else was praying for a miracle. So Talia was that miracle.
Wow.
Mhm. Mhm. Mhm.
Wow. I, wow.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. So that's all I got is, I mean, because
I'm not laughing. I'm laughing
that's
about why
something.
not.
Oh yeah. um, yeah. Mr. Drake got jokes over there. So my next question is for Roger. Did you know anything about organ donation or transplantation before?
Yes. Um, do, During high school, I was interning at the National Kidney Foundation. So I was aware of organ donation and I was aware of the facts and, just the commonly known things about organ donation. But before Godmom, I had known anyone personally who was in need of an organ or had donated before. So all of this was, so to speak, new.
Mhm.
Okay. I mean, that's great to know that you are knowledgeable in that area, because there are a lot of people who aren't as knowledgeable as you were. In volunteering with the National Kidney Foundation, which is another great organization in the trans community. Um, so that's great to hear. For Bella, how was your recovery process after your transplant?
It was great. You and Tafaro know, your part of your life is still at the doctor's office every week, at least mine was. Like I had to go, was it twice a week? Maybe I'll go on and say once a week, but sometimes I think I remembered maybe the first month or so, maybe twice a week, because they were, and I'm sure all hospitals structure that type of stuff a little differently, possibly. But I know you're going to be there at least every week, maybe twice a week, because they want to do those labs right away. Because the probability of a rejection is generally going to happen within probably like the first year in the beginning of the transplant to like the first 2 years. I kind of feel if you can get past that 2 year mark, it doesn't mean that it can't happen, but you're kind of like in the medical world in a little safer zone, so to speak, And so the consistency with having us there is to make sure that our creatinine is where it should be, that just our levels of, that's a way for them to see if they need to tweak our meds up or down. So yeah, I was there but for no more than 2 weeks, going at least once a week, and then it started to slowly stagger. Then it went to like once a month, and then I was seeing the nephrologist like every other month, and so it just got further out and further out because I was so stabilized. And they would always say, you got an amazing kidney. And I think they were going according to the labs when they said that, because they say so many in the beginning can be like this, and I just totally leveled, off, with mine. And so other than that, like right now, even now that I'm a new resident of Texas, of course, that was a very difficult part, having to acquire a new nephrologist. That's another thing. I love my nephrologist, from the one I had initially at University of Chicago, and then when I relocated to Florida after I retired. I mean, that's my most important relationship, is the one with my nephrologist, because if we not in sync, for me, that's going to be a problem, because I'm really, you guys know, based on how we are and what we kind of teach out here, that's a really important relationship. So we got to be able to flow, and nobody knows my body better than me. And so it was difficult leaving my nephrologist there, but this one it seems like a really good guy. And as he was sitting there from my first visit, which was probably about 3 weeks ago, he was overlooking all my labs that my doctor had sent over. And he said, wow, you have an amazing kidney. He said, and you're about to be 18 years. He said, I can tell you, I will not have a patient that's going to come in here that's going to have lab work that looks like this. And that's that. I don't have another patient as far out as you like that. And so I go, well, that's always great to hear. But I said, okay, so will I be seeing you like every 3 months? Because that's what I was seeing my nephrologist in Tampa every 3 months. And that was, I think he was being overprotective and just wanted to always see those labs, even though they were great. He said, no, I don't fit. He said, every 6 months, twice a year, unless you're having a problem. And if you're having a problem, I know you'll share that. I'll send you over for labs. He said, but no, you're good. And I was like, hey, you know,
That's good.
I
That's good
was
to hear.
fine with that. I was happy about that.
That's wonderful.
Ms. Cook, got any questions?
I do not have any questions. Like, again, thank you, Roger. Thank you, Lakeisha, for being on the show. Bella, thank you for always telling
Yeah,
your
guys.
fabulous story.
Yes.
Once again, this is an amazing thing for Thanksgiving. You know, the giving of organs, which is a big deal. But I have no questions. Thank you again.
Yeah.
Well,
Thank you,
to
guys.
end the show, I'm gonna go ahead.
No, I just said
I
thank
was
you
going
for
to
the
say, I wanted
invite.
to thank you guys.
Yeah, for doing this, especially before Thanksgiving, because
Yeah.
it's just
Yeah.
so important well, we should always give thanks, especially, you know, people in our situation, but especially during this time to recognize this. I appreciate you guys taking the time to do it. And Lakeisha and man, and as well as Raj, you know, it's so endearing to us to see people of color in what we do. We interview so many people, you know, and I know Phil and Tafaro agree with me on this. We don't get to see this that often. And so this is just like super, super exciting and cool to us. And I'm going to pray over this show that more people of color look at it, you know, if they didn't get to see it live, and just, you know, so they know it's okay to save a life. You know, it's okay. It will be fine. And most importantly, remembering you never know when you're going to be that person in need or somebody you love. And you're going to, you know, I said to a guy once who was very adamant about not being a donor, but I asked him if he needed an organ, would he take it? And he said, yeah. I said, so sir, and this was in fact, Raj, this was speaking at a transplant seminar with NKFI when I was still, you know, in Chicago. And I said, well, sir, you mean to tell me you would take what you're not willing to give? And I mean, you could have literally heard a pin drop on that floor. I didn't do it to insult him or embarrass him, but I just wanted him to really think about that.
Yeah.
I don't think it's right. I do not. You know, it's your choice, yes, but it's just not right. You know.
And you know, she's completely absolutely right, because I did a philanthropy month at Seton Hall. And the fraternity that I was working with, you know, theirs was organ and tissue donation for that month. And basically what my job was to get as many students to sign up to be organ donors. And the responses that I was receiving, and remind you, these are college students, so these are adults. They're telling me my parents made the decision for me, so I'm not going to donate my organs and things of that sort. And my question to them was, I call it the dinner talk. I said, I want to challenge you students that did not want to sign up to go home tonight and have that dinner talk with your family. I said, because at the end of the day, Do you even know what your parents' final wishes are? If God forbid, if something was to happen to them? And do you know how many students came back that next day and signed up on the National Registry to be an organ donor? And the reason why was because they were uneducated.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
remind you, these were not students of minority.
Mm.
And these
Mm.
students clearly said, my parents made the decision for me. One student told me that their parents didn't want them to put that they wanted to be an organ donor on their driver's license, because if they got into an accident, that once they see that they're not going to do everything that they can to save their lives. Again, being uneducated, because they didn't realize that there were so many different criteria that you have to meet just to even be considered an organ donor. And just because you're considered an organ donor don't mean that you can still donate.
Right.
Right.
Right. Right.
So again, it's all about education. And I think that here in America, we do not put out as much information about organ and tissue donation. And I'm sorry, but I think that this actually needs to start within the middle schools, when these children are able to understand it.
I
Mhm.
agree.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
at that time, families need to start talking to each other about it, because like you said, a person would say, oh, I'm not going to donate my organs, but guess what? If I'm put into that position where I need a transplant, I'm willing to take it.
Take
And
it.
at the end of the day, if you look at the circle of life, when it comes to the kidneys, I'm just going to use kidneys. If every person in America was to donate a kidney, there will not be a waiting list for a kidney.
That's
Simple
right.
There
as
would
that.
not be a
That's
waiting list
right.
for a kidney.
There will be
That's
abundance
right.
of kidneys. There will be
There will be,
Absolutely.
exactly, there will be
there
an
will be
abundance of kidneys. So,
exactly.
you know, it's very, like, again, it's very, very sad that we do not look at life like that. We just don't look at it like that. You know, we have some people on this earth, it's like, you know what? When I leave, I'm going to the grave with what God gave me.
Right. Right. And I want to tell people this: even if you are a transplant recipient, you still can be an organ donor, and I'm an organ donor as well. Just wanted to tell people that also. You
Mhm.
know,
So am I.
Amen.
right. And
Mhm.
there was a question that we missed from Ashley. She says the medical community is consistently working on success of bioartificial organs. How amazing is that? And she's exactly right. So Phil and I have done shows on that where right now they're doing all types of different types. They had the artificial kidney out. They're doing xenotransplant. Xenotransplants is with the pig transplant, pig
Mhm.
kidney. They're doing a whole bunch of stuff that hasn't hit the is coming, and there should be, you know, as these things do start to happen, start to see the less people on the waiting list. So I just wanted to make that a point also right now to say something about that
Mhm.
question that she said, because that's very, very
Mhm.
important.
Mhm. God gave us two for a reason, because we
True.
didn't need to. We don't. So
Right.
many people are born with one kidney.
Yeah.
And
Exactly.
and it's just something to really think about,
Right.
audience.
And
I
Bella,
would
they
say
don't
the
even
same.
know it until they might not know it for all their whole lives. You know
Yeah.
that they got one kidney. So yeah.
Mhm. Amen. Yeah.
I
So
it was a test for the people who do know with only one kidney. What are you gonna do with that other kidney? I mean, it's just I think it's a test for people who say that they're followers of Christ and believe in Christ, and to make that decision is like,
mm,
hey, you have
hmm.
two and don't even need one of them. What are you gonna do? What decision? What's your decision process going to be? Are you going to give that kidney to save someone's life? Are you going to be stingy with it
Mhm.
and just
Well,
live your
I
life
don't even want to
to that you
put
don't
pressure on
even need?
anybody to say anything like that. They can do what they
So,
want, but at least become an organ donor. Let's just say that. Let's start right there. Now, I don't want to put the pressure on anybody, say because just their bodies, but at least let's become organ donors. You know, that means
Mhm.
helping somebody when you're not here in the physical, and you got
Mhm.
great. you got great organs somewhere, and people are waiting for them. You're not going to use them where you're going. So let's pass more. That. I'll just say that. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Wow.
So
Well, thank you
let's
to my donor. My God.
let's end the show like this. Go around, Mr. Cook. Um, if you want to say something to your daughter or say something to someone that just recently found out that they're going to need a transplant, what would you say to them?
I would say, don't give up the fight, man. Let's educate yourself and be your best advocate. That's what I would say. I want to say, my sister Eva Cook, thank you so much for giving me my first transplant, and Jacqueline Downey, my second kidney. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. They know they tell me, don't say it again. Don't tell them thank you again, or they're gonna choke me. But I still say it anyway. And on this thankful night, I'm really appreciative for those things. So. That's it.
Yeah, man. Mr. Cook celebrating 15 years on the 19th. Congratulations to him. That's a big milestone. He's, like Bella said,
Thank
18
you.
years. So,
Yeah, that's huge.
so Lakeisha, what would you say if it hopefully you get to meet somebody who was able to donate to, or to a parent, not necessarily just a mother, but a parent, mother or father, wants to make that decision to donate their loved one's organs?
For me, it would be, it's hard to say, but I would say not to be selfish. Not to be selfish. And the reason why I say that is because sometimes when it's time for them to come to ask you about donating your family members' organs, to be honest with you, it really does start with the hospitals, because some of the doctors do not have the greatest bedside manners. And that was the first talk that I did for the New Jersey Sharing Network, was basically on bedside manners. And the reason why is because it could be that bedside manner that will have a family say, you know what, I don't want to do this.
Right. Exactly.
But if your family is educated and your family already knows what those decisions are, the family is not put on the spot at that moment to make that type of decision at that time. So for me to say to a parent, there's so much that you can do to have your child's memory live on. As far as advocating for them, letting them know that your child was loved, letting them know that you're in the fight along with them. It's just so much that you can do. There's so many different platforms to get involved in. And not only that, for me, it makes my grieving process so much easier, because I enjoy what it is that I do.
Awesome.
So, I want to thank you guys so much for this opportunity, to be able to be here, to be able to hear you guys' story, because it helps me in my fight for what I'm doing as far as advocating for you guys.
Awesome.
Well, we appreciate you, Lakeisha. 100%. We definitely appreciate your fight in our fight together. So, Roger, what would you say to my mom, or to someone that is looking into being a donor?
First, I want to say, Lakeisha, I am so moved by your spirit, and stay in it. Stay in it. Okay? And for anyone who's on the fence about donating, if it's on your heart, do it. Trust me, it will be more of a blessing to you than it is for the recipient. I promise you that. God, Mom, you know I love you. I never made it to Florida, though you made it to Atlanta. So on this platform, I'm saying I'm coming to Texas, and I'm gonna need some chili. That's it.
Well, technically, you were in Florida the whole 7 years I was there. I'm
True.
carrying part of you inside of me. You're always with me. I would not be alive if it were not for your gift of life in me. My doctor checked a couple of months back. He said, let's see the condition of your native kidneys. And I was like, I don't know why we're doing this. You know that they're shriveled up, which is medically called atrophy. You know they are. And he said, yeah, I need to check anyway. Just go over to so-and-so and get the test. So when I came back for my next appointment, we go through my labs one by one after we get through laughing and telling jokes. And I said, oh yeah, so what was the status of the test about my native kidneys? And he just like turned around and looked. Do I have to say, of course you were right? I said, I knew I was right. You know, he said, but he said, but no, nothing else looks wrong. So as I was driving home, because his office was about a 45-minute drive for me, which I always enjoyed because I have to go across the ocean to get there. So I love that drive. I loved that drive. And it just hit me. If I did not have this organ, I wouldn't be alive. I would have had no kidneys. I mean, yes, I could have been on dialysis, but there's a great possibility that I would have been very sick most of the time because we're talking about complete atrophy. So there's nothing for them to dialyze, technically, you know, nothing's being flushed out because they're no longer pretty much existing. That's technically they've disintegrated. And so every time I think about that, and I think about the fact that if it weren't for you, my children, I think I saw where my daughter, Ashley mentioned that earlier, my son would not have me. My daughter wouldn't have me with them. My grandchildren wouldn't have me. That just blows me away. And that's why every time I do a speaking engagement and tell my story, I have to keep my tissue by because I end up crying. You know, and I used to hate that. I used to say, why you tell this story over and over again? But that's a good thing because it keeps me grateful and it keeps me humble. And it continues to always remind me of how you bless not just me, but my family. You risked your life to save mine. And I love what I do out here with the podcast. That's my passion. That will always be my passion. That's my calling. I have no doubt. Like Philip, like Tafaro, this is what God wants us to do. He chose us to give us these gifts, and he wants us to be used for it, as well as beautiful people like Lakeisha to keep sharing. And so I just want you to know that you know this, and I know he used to tell me too. God, now stop saying thank you.
Please stop telling me. Stop telling me. Just live your life, please.
Well, Phil told me to do it. I am, and I'm living my best life. I am. I mean, because of that, you know that. I mean, not many people can say they retired at 51 years old, and I get a great pension, and I mean, I'm blessed. I'm good, and Philip, just know, my brother, I pray for you in my prayer closet every day. It's coming for you because I be fussing at Phil. Don't wear yourself out. You do too much. You know, Phil's amazing with what he does. And when he told me, Bella, I keep working this hard with the podcast and these things and that I do these things, he said, because it keeps my mind off the fact. In other words, he keeps him from going into a funk. That's the way, because I know how he feels. I know exactly what he's talking about. And because of the things that you are doing, God is going to bless you, brother. It may be seeming like it's going to take a minute, but you are going to get that kidney. I feel it in my spirit. It's coming. And I'm claiming it for 2023. I'm claiming it for 2023 because you deserve it. Yes. You deserve it. And you got all of us to have your back and to pray for it for you.
And just
So
remember, Phil, God puts his strongest soldiers out in the battlefield. So
come
right
on.
now, you're doing the work that you need to do
Yep.
so that you can reap your reward in the
Yep.
end.
That's right.
That's
And you're going to
100.
reap it big. Yeah. So thank you guys again for doing this show. And I hope I know we touched people.
And we got to do this again.
It's the reason behind into the shows, because the stories that we get from doing this, the inspiration, and one thing to this show that I see the show as a resource for people that may not be educated on organ donation, or even the people who are going through tests and stuff like that to go through transplant and things of that nature. And so I want to thank you all for joining us today to be that instrument to people, to be an educational source to people who may not know, who may not be knowledgeable on the subject of being a donor or being a recipient, what you can and can't do, or your decision making, like being in Lakeisha's position of being a parent and donating their sons, daughters, or whoever they're taking care of, organs. So I thank you all, especially Roger and Lakeisha, for making that selfless act to be a donor, or making a decision for your daughter to be a donor, because as a recipient, I am that it could not have been the easiest and most comfortable position to be in to make that decision. Um, I think it's maybe a little bit easier now, down to understanding the decision that you did make. But I think kind of at that time, I understand that it weighed a little bit on you. So again, myself, on behalf of Mr. Cook, Ms. Bella, we want to thank you for making that selfless decision. So again, we will be back on the Second Chance this Sunday. I hope everybody has a wonderful and blessed Thanksgiving tomorrow. Please hug your family. Please tell them you love them. You
Yeah.
never know if it's the last chance to do it. So take every chance
Amen.
you got.
Mm-hmm.
Tell them you love them. Hug them. Take as much time as you can with them. I know when I'm around my family, if we could, we probably stay for another 24 hours after the fact. We always tend to stay a little bit longer than it's probably meant to, but that's just how we kind of say we love you. So again, thank you all for joining us, and we'll see you all this Sunday. Have a great night.
All right.
All right,
Bye,
you
guys.
too.
Much love.